Miss Anne Klint, how are you today? Thank you so much for joining me to shoot the shit. What's going on? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm well. It's a nice fall day here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm happy to shoot the shit with my pal Jessica.
Yay!
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, it's kind of neat that we both started off in California where we met, and then you and Raul moved, and I was like, "Yay, that's so cool! You're in New Mexico." And then all of a sudden, the universe was like, "Oh, Jessica, you're moving too." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't see that coming." Okay,
Totally.
cool. Now I'm in Texas. This is different and interesting and awesome all at the same time.
All right on.
So
Right
I
on.
love I love that we're still doing all these things that we were doing before, all the self work and healing and getting together, whether it's through the ethers or in person now, which is still nice to be able to connect. And I'm really grateful that you made some time. It looks like we had to do a little bit of time change though, with the beautiful gardeners coming outside of my home studio today. So thank you so much for your patience and for giving me a little extra of your time. I super appreciate it.
No problem.
Mm. So tell us a bit about your work and what you're doing right now currently and what that looks like for your clients and people you're working with.
Yeah, totally. Um, it's kind of, I'm going to talk messy because things are sort of in an evolutionary process, well, as they always are, but I'm really deep in an evolutionary process right now. And I have been doing energy healing and transformational coaching, and I will continue to do that. But what is definitely dropping in is more guidance, teaching, whether you want to call that a spiritual teacher or just really like I'm feeling really called to start showing up in a way where people can be empowered to figure out this stuff and become their own healer and do their own work and so to really become more of a guide on this deep inner journey.
Yeah, lovely. It's been awesome to be a part of the journey with you too and to see
Hmm.
all the transformation that we've both made over the years. I
For
don't even
sure.
know how long we've known each other now. It feels like it's been lifetimes.
I'm pretty sure it has.
Um, has it been like 5 or 6 years? Maybe more?
Oh, it might even be a little bit more because I think I was reaching out to you when I was just coming out of like my deep dark night of the soul. And so that actually was more like 8 years ago. So maybe it's been like 7 years or something.
Okay.
I don't know. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I think about seven then. Yeah, because I was still in my office on Park.
Hmm. And you were there for a
Nice.
while.
I was 4 years. I loved that little office. It was so wonderful.
That was a cool spot.
Yeah, I loved it. It was so neat to have my own place on Park Avenue, of all
Mm.
places.
Totally.
That was very cool. I was like, yes, we're moving up. We're moving on up. Yeah. Um, when clients are working with you, what does that look like as you guide them? Are you doing like guided meditations for individuals, groups? Do you have like certain programs that you're working with?
Yeah, I do have a signature program that I work with. It's called Born to Flourish, and it's really this mix of one-on-one energy healing work, transformational coaching, and I created this curriculum that's really powerful that is a self-guided deep dive. It's really like the inner work that we're all here to do. And it's kind of packaged up in a way that people can really make the journey to get out of fear and into love and really come to recognize the limiting beliefs that they're operating under. And to really, and a huge part of it is actually about learning how to love yourself and practicing radical acceptance, radical compassion, and so that we can get to that place of self love. Because what I find is that when we finally get there, that's the gateway to unity consciousness. It's the gateway to your purpose. It's the gateway to basically creating anything you want in your life. And you just cannot really create the life that you want if it doesn't involve you loving yourself.
Yeah, I totally
Spoiler
agree.
alert.
Damn it, there's work to do. I wasn't anticipating that.
I know, and that's not really sexy, but that's the thing. It's like I'm sure you'll agree. Like all the energy healing in the world is nothing if you don't do the inner work with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's fucking messy and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have good, hard, ugly cries, and then you come back to center. And it seems to
Mm-hmm.
be like, I don't know about you, but the last like few weeks since we had the full moon in September, the harvest moon, the equinox, changing of the season, we've
Mm-hmm.
had what, 6 planets in retrograde for the last a few weeks as well, all at once, including Mercury,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Woohoo.
planet of communication, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It
Right.
simply is an opportunity for us to really have some push and support to really let go from an energetic standpoint of the things that we're holding on to.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of stuff coming up around forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
or unforgiveness, is really
Mm-hmm.
what I've been asked to look at lately. And before we got on the call today, I was asking you about what were we going to talk about. We had some certain things like maybe planned before, but we realized we did not. And then I was sharing with you that this word promiscuity popped into my head. And that led us to look up the definition, and that led us to the word indiscriminate. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, well, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
goes along with all this stuff right now, and the healing that we're not just doing for ourselves, but for the lineage, like for all the
Totally.
ancestors and people that came before us.
Mm-hmm.
We have the opportunity with this self-awareness now to shift the narrative in our mind first, which then allows us to see ourselves in a different way, and allows us to create a new environment with new people around us too. And it also allows us to see how we can change one little thing that will change many things from
Totally. The
past, present,
domino
future.
effect. Yeah,
Yeah.
the beautiful domino effect. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So with that, right now in your own personal process, and maybe what you're finding as a theme with your clients, like for me it's been about forgiveness, and that all has to do with mom wounds for me and
Mm-hmm. Big
working on
time.
that.
Big time.
And is there any theme that you have come across that has been at the forefront for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like we all have some wounding in our family lines, right? And a lot of stuff with mom and dad.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's definitely been a theme I've been looking at, kind of reviewing the work that I've been doing with people and ancestral trauma, mom and dad stuff, grandparent stuff, these patterns that repeat throughout families, these beliefs that repeat in families, and like just like how limiting they can be, how constrictive they can be, how damaging it is when, people are basically like taught codependency and taught that narcissists like relationships are totally normal and okay. And then like, fast forward in their life and they're, like completely traumatized by, these narcissistic patterns that they see. So that, narcissism has been a theme, recently, but one of the modalities that I use specifically, like we go in and we, release these what are called trapped emotions. And so much of the time, it's inherited stuff. Like we come into the world as pure, innocent, children of God, if you want to call it that. And yet, like, we're already carrying baggage and it's not even our own stuff. And then that baggage informs how we move through the world. And so, because of the way that I work and the modalities that I use, like this whole like mom, dad, wound, grandparents, ancestors thing is really prevalent. It's really a through theme. And what I love about it, not that people are suffering, but like when you can actually see that this thing that you've been engaged in, a pattern of thinking or a pattern of behavior or a pattern of self-talk or whatever, when you can actually see it extrapolate and like, draw it out over generations and you're like, oh, this isn't mine. And then it's like, okay, self-compassion just like automatically pours in. And then you're like, oh, these poor people that came before me that didn't have access to these tools, that didn't have self-awareness, that didn't feel supported, that didn't have all the resources that we have today to heal, expand, ascend. They didn't have those opportunities. And
Yeah.
then it's like massive compassion for these people that came before. Like they weren't necessarily bad people. Maybe they were. Like we all have shitty ancestors, right?
Yes.
But we also all have really good ones
Yeah.
who suffered.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated by that when I'm working with people too, because there's a point where you see the light bulb go off
Mm-hmm.
when you
Mm-hmm.
get into something that's been deeply hidden within the emotional body, right? Like in the
Yeah.
cellular memory.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's in our brain too. Like the mind remembers all this trauma, and the mind is also trying to get us to forget about it so we don't relive it again. The
Right.
body is still living it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we do become aware of it, you can see that light bulb go off for the person, or even for me as I'm working with the person, because I'll see them go through something and then it will also trigger something for me. And I'll be like, oh, that was for me too. Thanks so much. That's amazing. Thanks for
Yeah.
showing me where that was within me as you were
Mm-hmm.
working through it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the shift in the consciousness in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, wow, okay, that, like you just said, that's not mine. And now we have this different awareness, which then allows us to make a different choice
Yep.
if we're ready to, right?
Yep.
And then the encouragement of working with someone like you, right? And having that, the support and the love and compassion that's unconditional, right? Because when we're working with people, we don't have a history with them. There's no conditions on their healing, whereas there
Totally.
might be with their family members or their friends or even with their self.
Might be.
Yeah. always, always conditions, right? And these
Totally.
conditions seem to be like forever ingrained, right? Like you were just
Mm-hmm.
saying, like it doesn't come from us. We were simply taught these things and then we
Yep.
keep practicing them
Yep.
until we have a different awareness.
Right.
And then we can go, oh, okay, cool. This isn't mine.
Mm-hmm.
How do I now move forward? And that's really where
Mm-hmm.
the different tools that you work with come in to support people in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're helping someone move through something, what tools are you working with? What kind of energy work have you studied? Or is there anything like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all energy movement. Is there anything that you've studied particularly?
Yeah, totally. I infuse everything with Reiki energy. I am, certified at the master teacher level, and it does come into play, but it's not a front and center. And I don't do in person, energy work, at least right now. Who knows what'll happen later?
Yeah.
Um, I am certified at the master level with PSYCH-K, which is a really powerful tool used generally to reprogram limiting beliefs. But there are some really incredible, what we call balances that have been coming into play more and more, that they're really at the advanced level, which tells me that people are ascending and they're getting, like they're getting ready. They're more ready for these things that are really esoteric and deeply profound in terms of the way that they can affect not only the subconscious and unconscious, but the physiology and also ancestral work. And then I use the emotion code also, and that's where we're releasing these trapped emotions, a significant, portion of which are inherited or even absorbed from other people. Although the majority are still our stuff that's unprocessed that we have to release, but for sure, people are coming into the world with trapped emotions that are not even their own.
Yeah.
And then I do use meditations, guided visualizations. I'm very intuitive. I tap into whatever, is going on. And so, there are times that a session looks like a lot of coaching. There's times that a session looks like a lot of silence and we're flowing energy, or I'm guiding people through something. It's really just a very spirit-led process. I'm always tuning into the guides and higher self of the person that I'm working with, and going from there, and just seeking guidance, like what is in your best and highest good today. I understand you have this objective, let's see if that's what your guides have in store for you today.
Yeah. Yeah. On last month's podcast, I was talking with Cheryl,
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl Robledo.
Whom I
And
know.
yes, who you know. Yeah. Actually, she did Psyche training too.
Yeah.
I think you did it together. But then I didn't know you guys knew each other until later and many years. And it's just interesting how we're all super uber connected and we
Yeah.
don't even know it until a moment happens. I'm like, oh, like I've known you for a long time. Okay. One of the things that came up during that conversation was the quote, they're like a jack of all trades, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, most people take that quote as to be something negative or have a negative connotation. But the full quote of a master or a jack of all trades is a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Oh, see, I don't know if I've ever heard that last part.
Yeah. So a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Mm.
So it's really important, I feel, too, in our practices that when we're supporting people in their healing process, that we have different modalities to work with,
Mm-hmm.
because not one thing is always going to work the same. And that person is clearing each time they do a session with you, too. So every time they come back for another one, something else has cleared and they're going to receive the information differently now.
Right.
So having many different modalities to help people is super
Totally.
helpful and
Totally.
beneficial for their progress in their letting go and
Mm-hmm.
creating new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
that the other word that came up earlier was indiscriminate. You know, we're talking about being clear in our process and really digging into, number one, what am I working on, right? Because if you're working with someone that's coaching you, helping you with therapy, if they don't have a therapist or a coach or someone helping them, then you need to work with someone else, right? Because that's them saying that they don't need help and they're going to help you and they're going to heal you, right? And it's they don't have
Mm-hmm.
any problems. And everybody, no one has problems, and we all have stuff that we're working through.
For sure.
So being clear in our process, right, is really important for us to connect in with clients, with people in a different way, and to be able to hear what messages are coming for them too. Do you have a practice that you work with regularly that helps you to be more clear in that process when you're tapping in with that person? What does that look like?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I have a really like a sacred morning practice that I do every day, fairly religiously. You know, life happens, but
Yeah.
it involves walking outside in nature. And if I have a dog, that means I walk the dog. If I don't have a dog, that means I walk outside in nature. And I walk with presence.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, my mind wanders like everybody else's does, but I don't go out with podcasts, headphones, or anything like that. I'm intentionally wanting to be in nature and be connected and tuned in. Um, I have a daily meditation practice, working on a daily journaling practice. I tell
Yeah,
my
me too,
clients to do
sister.
that, but I don't always do it. Um, and I do have a hardwired or like automatic kind of like heart-centered mindfulness practice. So throughout the day, I'm actually doing a heart math training right now, and it made me realize that like one of their basic things is like this heart focused breathing. I'm like, oh, I do that like all the time throughout the day. And so it's this process of kind of coming back in, checking in with myself, just these micro check-ins. Not, I don't need to write a novel to myself. I just am like, okay, where am I at? What am I doing right now? Like one, what am I focused on? Two, how's my body feeling? Three, am I breathing? Am I breathing?
Yeah.
Let's breathe right now, and just noticing and coming back into that heart space is what I think I'm guessing a key part of like the intuitive practice that I do. And it now has, because I've just been doing it for long enough, it's just an automatic thing. And my guess is that there's probably other things that I'm doing now that are automatic that I'm actually not even tuning into, that are like keeping my radar open. And when I am working with people, I'm very intentional in that I want to be the clear vessel, and I'm not bringing my crap to the session. Like I'm very intentional with those energetic and emotional boundaries, which oftentimes, you work with some people and they're like, I want to know more of you. And like, that'll happen when our container's closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you anything you want to know about me, but right now this is about you. This isn't about me. And while, yes, I am receiving, downloads and my own healings during sessions for clients, sometimes, absolutely, that's
Sure.
happening. I'm not going in with my own stuff. It's becoming this empty vessel that can just channel whatever needs to be available for the highest good of the person I'm working with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my intention every time I begin a session, is to be a clear and perfect channel of love and healing energy. Like, that's it.
Yep.
Whatever your experience is during the time we spend together is your experience. And yeah, that's kind of a misconception that a lot of people have about um, people doing this work, because they feel like, we're completely, clear minded and there's nothing else coming in. But that's not really humanly possible as far as I'm concerned. Um, Even if you're talking to like monks that meditate for like 8 hours a day, we are never thought less.
That's
Right?
right. That's
You
right.
have a thought in the moment. Oh, I've reached the nothingness. And you're like, oh, here I am. You
Here I
just had a
am.
thought, right?
Totally. I just thought about
So
nothingness.
exactly, exactly. So I don't really feel like that's been a very fair thing that society has shared with the community, that they don't know how to meditate, or they're not doing it right if they're not doing it for 8 hours a day, or for at least an hour a day, or if they're not some like monk in a monastery somewhere. And that's not true. To be in meditation is actually to be aware of your thoughts, so that way you can shift out of the ones that aren't serving you anymore and shift into a more loving state of being, if that is called for in that moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's true. I mean, like we're never like this, we aren't this true empty vessel, but because of the work that we've done, I think I'm assuming, and I'll speak for you, that it allows us to recognize when we're having an egoic thought, and to recognize and learn to trust. Like it's a process of learning to trust these intuitive hits that come in when you're working with someone, that, say, like I remember one of the last sessions when we were doing trade work in San Jose a long time ago, it was like we did something, and at the last second it was like, put your hand on Jessica's leg, and I was like, okay, that's weird, thought I was done, and then I did, and I was like, I don't know, and then and after your words, you're like, oh, I got so much stuff coming through me, like in that moment. And it was like, okay, so that wasn't an egoic thought saying like, okay, now put your leg here, or your hand here, and okay, Anna, now this is what you're going to do. It's like getting into that rhythm of like being able to just witness, these are my thoughts and this is something else. And learning to parse that is just, I think, takes a lot of practice and a lot of trust and faith and actually courage, right?
absolutely. Yeah. And I totally remember that moment too. I remember that session that we did. I don't remember what was coming up now. And I remember the feeling of like, oh, yeah, I needed to look at that part of me, because that part of me, that physical part of me, was holding something energetically. It didn't matter if I knew what it was, or if I was supposed to do something with it. It was simply an opportunity for me to release whatever was living there in the memory, and the cellular memory, or that muscle memory.
Right. Totally.
And it is that practice, right? Like, and working together and doing work with friends, because there's a level of trust there, and there's a level of safety there that we're able to feel into and cultivate without judgment, without criticism, right? Because you're working together with people that you love. Like, you don't want to criticize them. That's not the intention. It's not to take them down. It's to uplift them and to support them in their growth and their evolution, in their gifts and in their practice. So that way more of us can share with other people in the world that are not in the same awareness, or they're wanting to be in a different awareness, and we're there to support them in having that different awareness.
Yep. That's right.
So what is the community that you're working with right now? Do you have are you working predominantly with women, men, or do you have like a combination of both? What does that look like right now?
Yeah, it's like 99% women. The work that I do is really working at the emotional level. And I just find that there are a lot of men who, one, they really think that they can do it all by themselves. Like that's part of our culture, the Lone Ranger thing, right?
Yeah.
And so it is really kind of like the rare man, and consider this, men, your your invitation to step forward into another aspect of yourself, because really, when we're talking about energy, we're talking about emotions, right?
Yeah.
And let's be real, male or female, we live in a culture that says to stuff your emotions, no matter who you are, no matter what you have below the belt, what parts you're sporting below the belt, it doesn't matter. But so for that reason, I do work with a lot of women. The women I work with are typically um, kind of more of the like go-getters. They really have their shit together. A lot of the women I work with have done a lot of spiritual work. They are definitely on the spiritual path, and they are stuck. And they have gotten as far as their work can take them because they've got some old wounds that really need to be resolved, and they're not necessarily fully aware of them. Mm-hmm. And so through our work, it's about this building this awareness, bringing them into the surface of consciousness so that then they can be healed. And let's be real, like that's kind of a scary process, right?
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, because we are not conditioned, we are not trained, we are not taught, we are not encouraged to go to that place that says, look at this hard, scary stuff. We're just not. And so we don't have the muscles, we don't have the skills, we don't have the kind of community support. And that's really like where my work is moving into. Also, like another facet of it is this idea around building really soulful community where people can actually show up as themselves in a judgment-free place. That's coming down the pipeline. It's actually already started, but it's not, I haven't really promoted it yet and talked about it a lot, but I have started a small community that I hope to grow over the next year.
Nice. I'm sure you will. Yeah. I've noticed that too since being here in Texas. You know, I only knew like a handful, less than a handful of people here who were acquaintances. Like we weren't friends. We hadn't talked for a long time, and I didn't really know anybody when I got here. Nor did I know like who I'd be working with, if I was going to have to get like a regular job, you know, and like, what did that look like? And I didn't even know, like the universe just said, go. And I was here, you know, 7 weeks later. And in the last 7.5 months, I have attracted such a beautiful community of people. Like it's growing each day. That's and awesome. The people that I get to work with are just like fantastic. And for me right now, I'm actually working with more men than women.
That's great. At the moment. That's awesome. I love that.
So I actually had this vision many, many years ago that more of my practice would be with men. And then, you know, you go in the hills and the valleys and you go, okay, I'm going to do one-on-one coaching, and then I'm going to do this one-on-one spiritual work. And then I'm going to work in groups too, because I can do it at yoga studios and whatever else. And then all of a sudden there's like a shift.
Yeah.
And then the universe is like, oh, but we're going to do this now. And you're like, but wait, I've been doing this. And it's like, I don't care. I don't care about what you've been doing. Yeah. This is what we're going to do now.
Totally.
And so the big message for me lately has been community as well, like building communities and doing more like group sound healings and working more in larger groups to reach more people at once, right? And that's wonderful. Like the summits that you've been doing, right? Like being able to reach more people on a webinar and a summit in that way, and to be able to share information after with them, and potentially, you know, work with more people on an individual basis too.
Yeah.
So right now, I feel that the frequency of the earth is really begging, asking for that sense of community, for us to not even have a sense of community, to be in community.
Yeah.
So that way we can remember that, you know, the oneness of us as a human race. You know, I'm a little challenged by all of the separateness, that all the labels that everyone has nowadays. Like I support all the movements. I don't have any critique for any of them. I simply want people to come back to the human race and the soul and the heart, and start to really be present with human. And maybe that's the only label that we work with, you know, so that way there's no separation, because the separation is the part that my brain is really challenged by, and it has been challenged by like my whole life. I never really understood all of it because I didn't ever think or feel that way, even as a young child. So I'm curious to know like how we move forward from this, and because of all of the different platforms we have to share information on now, and how it can reach far and wide all over not just the world, but the universe and whoever else is listening out there, because they're
Totally.
watching, they're listening, right?
Hey, cousin.
Exactly, right? There's this big, huge thing happening on planet Earth, and
Uh-huh.
everybody out there is like, okay, let's get the popcorn out. Like, what's going to happen next?
Exactly. Totally.
And we're in the middle of it, like in the trenches, like,
Hmm.
yo, like, can y'all come down and like help us out here because
Totally. I
shit's
need a
getting
lifeline.
real,
Totally.
right? Like, I just kind of look at the world sometimes. Like, I don't watch the news
Uh-huh.
anymore, and occasionally I'll tap in just to see, like, to be aware of what's happening around me in the dream
Yeah.
of the planet, as Don Miguel would call it. And
Right.
I'm like, yeah, that's not my dream. Like, I don't
Heck
dream of
no.
war and starvation and suffering. Like, I dream of a world of peace and love and
Hmm.
support and community.
Hmm.
And I don't know, for you, like, how, when you're doing like visualizations with your clients, do you also have like this visualization practice you do for yourself to begin or to support the manifestation of the world that you wish to experience?
That's a good question. I don't think that it's really like a super concrete practice, but what is always in the back burner for me in the work that I do, like for instance, in my membership group, I do lead like a live meditation where
Mm-hmm.
every week we meet for a different topic. And so one of them is a live meditation. And I do really tap in to uh, uh, kind of pick up the pulse, one, of like the group that I'm working with, like what's going on in their world. And then two, how does it relate to purpose
Mm-hmm.
and like us all arriving at this place where we are living our purpose, whatever that looks like. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean, being on stage and having this big thing, but that we're actually like tuned into source and we have healed enough of the stuff that keeps us in the 3D trenches that you're talking about. And then the next level, so it's like the base level is like the immediate physicality of like, who are these people and what do they need right now? The next thing is like, and then how do we get them to their purpose? And then the next thing above that is, how do we serve the ascension of humanity? Like, how do we get out of these fucking trenches?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we have been in them and we seem to be digging them deeper and deeper and deeper right now, as opposed to figuring out ways to not need them anymore. And
Yeah.
so it's like some of us are going this way and I'm pointing up, we're ascending, we're moving towards our
Yeah.
cousins in the sky. And a lot, and when you do peek your head into the news and you look around and you're like, oh my God, what is happening? This is not ascension, people. This is the opposite. This
Yes.
is descension.
Yeah.
This is devolving into madness. And so yeah, I am definitely like really at the heart level and spirit and soul level very much interested in reversing what appears on the surface to be very destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, and I'm just one seed of light among billions and billions of seeds of light. And, but that's my goal, is to have the work that I do serve an ultimate purpose, which
Yeah.
is the ascension of humanity.
Yeah. Beautiful. So that word purpose, what is one word that describes how it feels to be in your purpose?
Oh yeah, totally. Alive, lit up,
Alive.
like just
Mm.
actually just alive, like actually living fully, not leaving anything on the table.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love
That was
that.
like 10 or 12 words.
No, alive. That's the word.
Alive.
That's the word we're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like truly alive.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I know when we first met, like we shared a lot of really intimate stories about the things that we chose to experience and the the depth of unworthiness
Mhm. Mhm.
that was there
Yeah.
and is still. I mean, unworthiness may be a lifelong journey for me personally.
Mhm.
Um, to remember my worth and to remember that, I am more than good enough to do and be exactly who I am.
Yeah.
Um, and I just really appreciated the level of vulnerability and your openness to continue
Mhm.
going even deeper
Mhm.
and to make quote mistakes and or share things that didn't feel comfortable, in order to continue that growth and to grow even more and to expand even more.
Yeah.
And I really love that you've stepped so into your power and that you're doing all these wonderful things and working with so many people, and that you have this new beautiful home and you're able to build something from that new foundation. And I'm really excited to see where we're all going next, and I'm really excited to see how you continue to grow, expand, and evolve.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that and witnessing me in that and just being so generous with your words. I really appreciate that. And I have really gotten a lot out of our friendship and learned a lot from you. And
Me too.
just really, it's been fun. It's when, I talk a lot. I started a YouTube channel. I'm talking a lot about spiritual awakening in different contexts with different people. And it can be such a harrowing process. And so, in some ways, like, I know that no matter what I might be going through in an awakening kind of ascension process, and we go through them multiple times, right? It's not just one and done.
Yeah.
Like, I always have in the back of my head, like, Jessica knows what this is about. Jessica's been there. I could talk to Jessica about this and she's going to know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, like, having that like kindred spirit with you is really valuable to me. And I'm excited, like, for everything that you're doing. I'm always watching and going, wow, how does she do that? Wow, look at that. Oh, that's so cool. She's doing that. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I love that, all the people that we have called into our field right now are really doing some amazing work, and it inspires me to
Totally.
continue showing up, because some days I'm like, no, fuck it, I'm gonna lay in my bed all day, and maybe it's 3 days, and I don't really care what anybody thinks about that, because that's what I need right now, and that's
Yeah.
what is going to benefit me. And if that doesn't benefit you and you don't like it, I don't care. And that's really where I'm at right now, because so many years of the people
Mhm.
pleasing patterns that
Yeah.
we've learned from family members, moms, dads,
Mhm.
grandparents, and just becoming like acutely aware of them lately has really allowed me to step away from a lot of that and
Good.
to practice that forgiveness within myself, and to
Mhm.
also help my ego, the ego, practice for, asking for forgiveness,
Mhm.
because that's been a theme lately,
Mhm.
and it
Mhm.
seems to be up for people around me too, not just for forgiving
Yeah,
the self, asking for forgiveness as well, because that's the last thing that the ego wants to do.
for sure.
So I'm really excited to be aware of these different things together and to take them into the next part of our evolution as we shed more layers and come into our purpose even more. Which,
Mhm.
as you said, doesn't mean that you need to be on a stage. It's simply
Yeah,
about being you, your authentic you, and really
absolutely.
loving every part of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And owning
So,
all the parts of you, right? It's like we all
yes.
have this, our genius zones, and that's where your purpose lies, right? Is in these areas that, maybe your parents tried to crush out of you, or school or world or corporate or I don't know what. And it's like we all have these aspects of ourselves that are completely unique and legit and incredible and powerful. And it's like, yeah, like, just allowing yourself to be who you are in any given space, place, with people, whatever. It's just like, let your freak flag fly.
Exactly. Hallelujah for the freak flag. Yes.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So tell us how you can be reached and where people can find you, and what you're putting out there right now.
Yeah. So you can find me online on my website. My name is Anna, but it's spelled with an E. So it's very confusing. ANNEMKLINT.com. And if you want to learn how to love yourself more, you can take my free 10-day self-compassion challenge at selfcompassion.rocks is the website. And if you want to know more about what I'm doing, hop on my newsletter, which you'll find on my website. And that'll give you firsthand knowledge of what's coming up, what free events, what paid events I'm doing. And I don't really do social. It's not really my thing. So if you want to know about me, don't go to Instagram.
Go to my website because everybody has one.
That's right.
Email me. I'd love to hear from you.
That is right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me to shoot the shit today, Anna. I love you.
I love you too, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me. I love spending time with you.
Likewise. I'll talk to you soon.
Adios.